This is Ryan Cantor, and in this video, we'll be previewing the Clemson spring game. That takes place this Saturday at 1 p.m. in Death Valley. To help us do that, we have Matt Goldin joining. Matt, welcome.
Thanks, Ryan. Always good to be back here, and always good to be talking football. It feels like it's been a while.
Yes, it does, and we'll get a little taste of it in the spring game, and then it's going to be a long wait. So I figure let's really enjoy the spring game. Let's pick it apart. Let's learn what we can, and then we kind of go through the desert of no football.
Absolutely, I'm excited for it. It should be a good day. I'm glad that they finally have wisened up and not tried to schedule it against the Masters. That's been an issue for years.
Yes, I saw Auburn had it the same weekend as Easter and the Masters, and not smart, and rain.
Yeah, just not a good weekend for that.
Yeah, so this is a perfect weekend, and let's start with what I think everyone's going to be keen on keeping an eye on is the offense, kind of in general. What does the new offense look like? What does the scheme look like? Um, from what we're hearing, the chatter, I feel like they're giving us what everyone's basically been asking for years is more tempo, using the middle of the field and the tight ends more. So I'm excited to see it. What are you expecting? And what are you hoping to see? Um, in general from the offense.
In general, I'm not going to read too much into anything I see unless it's just unless it's they come out completely different. I'm just not expecting there to be that much. I think we're going to see bits and pieces, but I think it's going to be very vanilla. We know Clemson doesn't like to put things on tape, even as far as 5 games into the regular season. So I think we'll see some differences, but I'm not necessarily expecting it to just be a night and day difference in the spring game because I don't know that they're going to show their full hand.
Yeah, that's certainly true. Are you expecting to see any more tempo or um,
I think we're going to see a lot more tempo. I absolutely am going to think we're going to see that. And I think that's going to be a twofold thing because I think it's one going to be because that's our new offense. We're going to be back to being up tempo. It's going to be that. But I think it's because our defense needs to be able to handle that because that has been a thing that throughout college football has really harmed some, good defenses. I mean, I think we all can remember not this past season, but the season before when UGA I know they eventually won the championship, but when they lost to the SEC title in Alabama, it was because Alabama went up tempo and the big guys at UGA were kind of neutralized because of that. So I think we're going to see it both for our offense's benefit, but also because our defense needs to be ready to handle that.
yeah, I think that's something that a lot of fans are hoping to see for sure. Um, okay, so staying on offense, I know for me, there's a few positions I'm kind of concerned about and really want to see a couple players pop. Any sort of position you might be concerned about, and within that position, any players you're really hoping, um, you know, may, have a big game and maybe quell some of your concerns.
It's wide receivers for me. I mean, I think that's for a lot of people. It's been a few years since we've been dominant there. There's been flashes, but some issues. The one thing I was talking with somebody about this the other day. Clemson has not had that big play receiver in a few years in the sense that, one thing that helped make Trevor and Deshaun so good is they had guys that you throw it down there and 80% of the time they're going to catch it. Or, even have guys like Martavis Bryant who 70% were probably going to come down with it.
Right.
And we just haven't had that. Ngata showed flashes, but it was never consistent. And I really hope Adam Randall, Cole Turner, I think are the two guys that have the potential to be those guys again, be that Nuke Hopkins, that Mike Williams, that, hey, it's third and 14, chuck it down there and see what happens. And it's going to happen more than not. So that's going to be the first that I'm looking at. The other thing is just consistency. I mean, we last year, we saw there were a lot of things that can be blamed on DJ. That's not an argument at all. But there were so many times it felt like him and the receivers were not on the same page. And we had guys running different routes. DJ was throwing one way, they were running another. And I think that's one thing I want to see is Cade or Vizinha or whoever is back at quarterback, are they on the same page with their receivers? And are our receivers on the same page? And one thing I've heard during spring ball is that they've simplified the offense. Maybe that means a little bit less of that confusion. So maybe we'll have a little bit more just not losing plays because guys aren't sure what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, that's so spot on. There were so many times where there was just a horrible throw, and you'd find out after the game, the coaches would say it was the receiver, which maybe absolves some of the issue from the quarterback, but at the same time, you're wondering how are they so far off all the time? So yeah, that's a good one. One thing I'm also looking to see on offense. Um, is Hunter Helms? Is he going to be? Is he the second string quarterback? Would that let them redshirt Vizina? Because that would sort of help out with some of this recruiting trouble where they've missed on a couple of their quarterback commits. So that'll be interesting to see how he looks versus Vizina. Um, and Cole Turner is definitely one. If you know Adam Randall's, he won't play in the spring game, so Cole Turner is the receiver I'm keeping an eye on to see does he how much of a big play threat is he? All right, let's flip it over to the defense. Um, any position groups you're concerned about there? Any specific players you're hoping will kind of quell that concern with big performances?
I think going back to it, it's defensive backs were a bit of an issue last year, particularly safeties and particularly Andrew Mukuba. I mean, he had a bad year. I know he was playing out of position a good bit, but he was definitely, I mean, in both the South Carolina game and the Tennessee games, got really exposed there. It's been a lot of talk that he's healthiest he's ever been this year. He's more focused, so hopefully that kind of fixes itself. But I'll definitely see because I feel like we're going to want to showcase some of these young receivers a lot. I think this is going to be a time that, going back to offense, I think Cole Turner is going to be a guy that we're going to see get the ball a lot in the spring game, which means maybe Mukuba gets his chance to kind of show that he's grown as well.
Yeah, and it's at least to me was sort of news that he had the dislocated elbow and he wore the brace, and you sort of felt like that was part of his struggles. But now that Mickey Kahn, his position coach, has come out and said he had a knee issue, he had an ankle issue, so you wonder how much that was holding him back because he was unbelievable as a freshman, and if he can get back to that even. As a junior, just play as well as he did as a freshman, which I think is totally realistic. The pass defense, which was Clemson's biggest issue on defense, could take a huge jump, I think.
And I think that on my notes before here, I wrote down something that I put on both offense and defense, and that was depth, because that's what I want to see as well. Because for the past few years, I feel like we've really had this issue of finding out that guys have had to play more hurt than we thought. And
Yeah.
that's understand that's part of football. Guys are going to play hurt. I get that. But, you know, guys are going to play hurt. I get that, but like we don't need guys playing on some of these injuries. And the thing is that we're in a position where we're having to play guys who are 80% versus their backup who's 100%. We need to see the depth
Yeah.
come out.
Yeah, and to make kind of further emphasize your point, Mukuba, he had to move over to cornerback for a while, so he wasn't healthy. He was playing cornerback, and so they were pretty clear of, hey, we're going to keep him at either the nickel or the safety, and he's healthy, and we're going to let him thrive. So that's potentially a big boost to the pass defense. One other thing I want to ask about, I know I would say interested in seeing how the defensive ends are going to look. KJ Henry gone, Miles Murphy gone, Xavier Thomas. I don't believe he'll play in the spring, so that leaves you a bit short. I'm a little concerned about this Xavier Thomas got a clean bill of health, so he should be good, and I'm excited about him. But if you're relying on only him with no depth behind him for the two defensive end slots, that's trouble. So I want to see Maskell's a sixth-year player. A lot of people are excited about him having, that KJ Henry, Kevin Dodd final year breakout. Maybe he does, but we haven't seen it yet. His PFF grades pretty low every year, and they're not really trending up. So, is he going to have a breakout? What about Kay Denhoff? We're starting to hear a little bit of positive things about him. Could he play a big role? Sounds like Zaire Patterson has a little ways to go, but I really want to see those defensive ends. Just your thought on that position group, and I'll let you close this up.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There, we've got some good guys up front, and then you don't really know what's behind them. And I agree 100%. I want to see how some of these young guys do, and not just for who else is going to be there with XT, but who's going to be there in 2024, who's going to be the guy in 2025, because it's kind of wide open after that. So yeah, I agree. I think the defensive line and defensive ends will be a big thing to watch this weekend.
Absolutely, Matt. Thank you so much for joining.
Absolutely, always a good time to be on.
Awesome.
Thank you.